Hey guys, welcome to a RenderSpaz video tutorial. I got an interesting tutorial here to show you today. We're going to be creating some dancing water speakers. So I thought this is a pretty cool gadget that I don't know if you've seen these, but they're pretty much a speaker that has water infused inside a glass container or a plastic glass container, and as the music goes or you get with the beat, the water sprays up and makes like a little water show inside these LED lights. If you Google dancing water speakers, you'll see what I mean. Pretty cool looking things. So I have one myself personally, and so I figured let's try to model that and see what we can do with it. See if we can create something interesting for 3D Studio Max. And I figured why not show the world. So we're going to get started off with creating a box, and we're starting to just create where our edges are going to be right now. So I added a turbo smooth, and when I applied the turbo smooth at first, you can see there's no edges. So we're going to get like these weird, it's kind of weird ball form. And the reason why we get that is because we don't have edges. So what I'm doing here is connecting some edges and defining where those edges are going to be for our base of the speaker. Now we're going to use some other software as well. We're going to use Modo Fusion. Very awesome tool for modeling. You can model the whole speaker if you wanted to in Modo, but for this instance I'm going to just model one section of the speaker where I need it's just one important part I need, so which was just the speaker itself. But for now we're just going to build our base here in Max. So I'm just going across each of the sections and creating edges. We're making, we just want to make four-side polygons across the top edges here, so they all connect. And you'll see what this is going to do in a minute here. So we'll continue to add some more edges here. Just need to get some, I believe, here on the back and on the front, or the top and the bottom, sorry, of the speaker. So just kind of bring this close as we can. This side here, hit ring, connect -96. Right, so we're just cornering these off. That's looking right. So now when we apply our turbo smooth, you can see we got a nice edge now. We don't have any of that sphere like object that we were getting. Alright, so once we have this form, we can now start to bring this guy into Modo, and that's what we'll and that's where we're going to create our speaker hole, and this way we don't have to do too much modeling here in Max. It's going to speed up the process quite fast. Before I do that, I'm just going to make a connection here in the middle, because what we need to do is we just kind of need to bring out the front face of the speaker. We want it to curve out. So I'm going to grab this edge here. We just want this edge here up to the top part there, and just bring this out. Okay, this is going to be our front face of the speaker, and we'll just do a chamfer. Just trying to get something kind of even here. Bring that out a bit. So now we're just looking at these lines here and seeing what we need to do to fix this topology. So I'm just going to do a little cuts here, just clean this up. Just go down the side here. I'm just going to do this manually. all my time is going to be saved going through Fusion. Alright, so now we just got to make a couple of welds. So I'm just going to weld these now together. So I could have just dragged those over. That's okay. I'm just going to weld these. Grab these guys. And backspace. Let's remove them. Remove these guys as well. And same with this guy. We don't need that much. There we go. This is going to get quite hefty in a minute as we put the turbo smooth on. So there, now we got a nice rounded face. Alright, that should work. And then we'll just pop over to Modo and start Modo Fusion and get our front little speaker hole area there. And this is, we'll model that out. This way it speeds up the process quite a bit. So, okay, so what I've done was I've exported this object as a FBX, okay, and then I imported it into Modo. So now that we're in Modo, we're in our Fusion tab, or viewport, okay, and we're just bringing out the tools that are given. So we're going to bring up this cylinder here. We'll make it larger so that we can fit a template here of where we want this hole to be cut. Okay, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. We'll just scale it up, right, so that intersects with our other piece of geometry here. I'm just going to go into our action center. Let's make a selection, and now we're just going to scale it. We don't need it that large. So now, let's drag it in so it intersects inside the base. And just find out where our speaker hole is going to be. Somewhere like this should be all right. We'll, select them both, go to a new Fusion tab. We're going to type in speaker. And I'm going to use union of meshes. Now it's going to bind them together, and we get this little section here below. This is kind of our tree, and it's used by OpenGL. So we're able to select our cylinder and drag that to this part of the tree down here. This is where we get our subtract. All right, and you can see it makes a really nice cut into the geometry, and then you can select your edges here, and we can just smooth these out a bit and bring the width up, and this is exactly what it looks like in the speaker. So this really replicates a nice, gets a nice result and replicates what the speaker would actually look like with the hole cut in. So right now I'm going to make a new mesh, and once we grab this new mesh, we can we're going to make a secondary hole here. So we're just going to have to scale it down a bit. Okay, just get it down there. It's okay. I'm just going to just do this quite quickly here. See if I can. Try and get this guy to scale in the proper scaling down there. So moving the pivot. Scale it down this way a little bit, and then you know what? I'm just going to bring it up. I'm going to do this quickly here, just get the result we need. And we're just going to get it in a nice position, and then we're going to apply it to our tree and add it to our Fusion model here. So once we're in position, all we got to do is drag it into this tree here. So just add the cylinder here, drag it in, just make sure it's selected. Okay, and then we still want to make sure we're not. It's catchy because it's inside the first cylinder we've created, so we're just going to make sure that we have that mesh selected and dragging it into one of these slots. There we go. Boom, that's added. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to subtract this as well. Drag it in a subtract slot, and we can now just in real time we can move this back. You can see we get the results in live feedback. Amazing, amazing from Luxology and the guys at the Foundry. This is a great tool. It's going to really speed up workflow for lots of artists. So it's already got the results that I need, and then I can bounce back into 3ds Max, and then I'll just finish the modeling stages there. But that's the results I was looking for. And so what we'll do is take a look at it here. Perfect. And we got a little edge there, and we can put I would say like a rubber edge around, like a black rubber edge that you get around the speaker, and then we can fill in the actual, we'll actually create the actual speaker face. So we can do this all in 3ds Max, but I got the hole cut out, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. So we can now move down over into the speaker of the Fusion model speaker, and we're just going to convert this model over so that it's a proper mesh file. Okay, and there we go. That's pretty much it. We can drag this back into 3ds Max, and we can export it by saving it by the save as, and we're just going to export it as FBX. All right, so now that we bring the FBX back into Max, the scaling is going to be way off, and for some reason we got keyframes. We don't need those, and we just need to get rid of the meshes that we don't need there. That gave us all the booleans. We'll got a couple lights and cameras in there, but what we'll do is we'll scale down this speaker base to an average size down here. There we go, somewhere in the grid. So we can model this. Go to shaded mode. All right, and we can see that this model is quite dense. All right, you could go with it, but what you also could do for an option is use the optimizers within Max. So this way we could maybe just bring down a little bit of the polygons, and we don't have to collapse this or in any way of keeping it as an editable mesh, but we can keep the modifier stack up there with the Pro optimizer. So this way we have the options of creating a lighter model, and it doesn't destroy the model at all if you keep it at a good percentage rate. All right, so Pro optimizer is definitely good for that. So you can see the difference. Oops, just lost it there. Bring it back down. So your vertex count doesn't really affect it too much, but as you bring down the vertex percentage, you start to see a lot of the mesh go away. But you know what? Look at, you still have a very high quality model here, more than what you need. You know, because if you're going to bring this into a video game, you're definitely not going to want to have this much polygons. And sometimes I just go overboard with the polygons. So, all right, so we're going to just calculate this. Let's get a final percentage here, 60%, 20. That should be all right. You don't even notice a difference between that, besides that we're going to get better performance. Yeah, you could just collapse the stack, but you can also leave it up there, you know, if you want to change it. But I'm happy with this. So now let's create the speaker face. All right, so we're going to do that by, we'll just drag a sphere out here in the screen. the viewport. Get it about approximate size of the as our little speaker hole here. We'll convert it to an edible mesh, edible poly. Delete the half side out. Squish this down a bit. And what we'll do is we'll it's going to rotate this too as well. So we'll grab the just going to center our pivot. Make sure our angle snaps are on. It's 180. Now what our issue is that we have our normals are flipped backwards, so we got to flip them upright again here. There we go. Now we're going to grab the outside edges and then we're just going to shift drag and get some thickness there. Okay, create an edge. Starting to look all right. Let's create a let's get a turbo smooth in there. Start to see what we have here. It's nice and smooth. Grab the outer edges, and then what I want to do is just round this up. It's a little sharp, so we'll just loop. Just drag this out a bit. All right, scale it up. That helps. Then we just get it into the spot, and then we just might have to adjust. Just make sure that it's with scale there. So I'll go to our front view, and we'll scale this up. And that's not looking too bad. I want to leave a little bit of a gap there around the edge there, just so that we can create, I would say, like the gasket or the rubber ring that goes around that seals the speaker. Call it the seal. Pretty much, it's pretty much what it is. Rubber seal. So what we'll do is just create a tube. 36 sides. Poly. We'll just grab the one edge here, a ring, and let's just scale that down. Let's make it a little bit thicker. I thought it was a bit too thin. Ring, and we're going to connect. Let's just bring out that front edge just a bit so it rounds off. Now we can grab this seal and let's just drag it in there and see what we come up with. Which is not bad at all. Alright, so it's not bad. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create our plastic clear casing that holds the water as it jumps around, a chamber of what you want to call it. So I'm using a chamfer box. We'll just move this into the space here that we are going to put this on the speaker base. Move it up, and we'll start to adjust it here. Center this out. Okay, you can right-click your mouse, and you'll get it to go through the center of the grid. So from here, we're just going to drag it out a bit, drag it in and drag it out. We'll just get it at a proper spot. let's convert this to an editable poly. Drag it out. Looks like we're going to have to create some more rounded edges, or rounded face, just to match that profile there. So we're just going to grab, let's just create the height here a little bit before we get into that. Okay, grab those edges, bring and connect. Right, we'll connect one edge. Actually, that was just, why don't we just chamfer that? Actually, I could have done that in the earlier part when I was creating the base, just chamfer the edge. But anyways, this works here. It's good enough. Comes out of it. Maybe we'll add. Let's see. Let's chamfer this again one more time. Just want to make sure we have enough edges that we create nice smoothness towards the top edge there. We don't want it to be too jagged. So I'm also trying to be careful of how much I'm using, but that should do it. That's enough. That'll give us a nice dense mesh there. Convert this to an editable poly, and now we have a nice chamfered edges and a nice encasing for our water tube to be displayed inside. Alright, we just want to do a little bit of adjustment here of the height. And we're looking pretty good so far. I'm liking what I'm seeing. It's not taking too long to create this, especially that complex part where the speaker inset is. Thanks to Modo, that really sped that process up quite quickly. Alright, so let's go back to the speaker section. Oh, we got a camera in there, I gotta get rid of him. You know what? Before I do that, I'm gonna go right to the active shade. Let's take a look at getting some materials. Let's get something interesting going here before I get to adding more details. So we're pretty much to the spot we want to be here with this model. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a Vray light dome. Okay, that's going to give us some nice diffuse light, and also we're going to use this as a reflection. So I'm going to just drag over here, stop, and just get a an HDR. And then what I've done was I've actually got a little ahead of myself here. I've just created a chrome material for the base, all right, and then for the little inset there, I added two, not the inset, but the gasket or the seal. I've created two of them together, so I make like a little bit of an edge there, and I just applied this kind of rubber-like material here to it. That's all I did. Was recording that section that I was creating materials. So just to give you a recap of what happened there, was just that I created a chrome material and a rubber material. So we're going to do the speaker here, or the face of the speaker. We want it to kind of be like a satin look. So what I'm going to do here is just going to change the Fresnel IOR and our reflections. Kind of just want to get a little bit of a glare. It's a little bit too much. So let's take off the highlight glossiness here. And now we're starting to get something there. All right. Also with the chrome material, be aware that what I've done with that was the reflection glossiness. I brought that to about a 0.998. All right, just a bit of a blur on the chrome, because you don't want it too sharp. You don't want it too much mirror. It just really helps make it look like a plastic chrome instead of a real chrome. All right, so that's just one tip there. All right, so let's. So we got the speaker, we got the seal, and we got our base all materialed up. And let's go in with a the glass. All right. The HDR, I'm just using a bought HDR. You can use any kind of indoor or outdoor HDRs that you like to use and apply that HDR to the V-Ray dome light. All right. And that will give you, that's all I have here. That's all that you haven't seen on the camera. That's all I've done. Very straightforward. So we really got some cool effects. Everything's looking really nice. Casing's looking legit. Let's add a shell modifier and just see if we can get some thickness to the glass. Now just one little tip. When you're using the shell modifier, make sure that for this casing that it's not too thick, because if it's too thick you're going to get a funky refractive square that you're seeing in there in the center of the casing. So if you just make sure it's thin enough, or I would recommend to apply a little bit of a thickness, but it doesn't have to be as thick as I have it here. And I recognize this issue after I've created this video, so just make sure that it's just not as thick of a shell. The shell thickness is not that thick, so just keep it thin and it'll go away. You can watch that on V-Ray RT, so you can see it, it'll disappear. So as we move forward, everything's looking pretty good. Okay, you can see materials are reacting the way we want them to. I might just sharpen this up a bit. Okay, bring our reflection glossiness up on our speaker face. There we go, so we get a nice little highlight. And that's looking not too shabby. Alright, so this is a lot of material testing and keeping my eye on the RT, and then watching how my materials react as I change some of these settings. Maybe you can apply a little bit of a noise to our plastic glass, like kind of a ripple effect a little bit if you want. I'm not really seeing too much change here. I'm going to bring these down a bit. There's nothing really going on there. I'll try about 20. But I just want to make it so that it's not super sharp. All right. When it's too sharp of a reflection, that's when it starts to look very 3D or CG. So we just want to doll it up a bit. So maybe what I'm going to do is just go to the classic reflection glossiness. This is 0.95. It's a little bit blurry. And we want it to look like frosted glass. 0.97. You know what? And that's going to look better. So it just gives a little bit of, that starts to take away the sharpness a bit. And I just want to put a little gray into the diffuse of the glass here. Just to fog it up just a bit, because it is plastic. It's not pure glass. And I'm thinking this is looking pretty good. All right, and for materials and for just the basic lighting setup of an HDR, remember about the shell modifier. Make sure that the glass is a little bit thinner. You don't want it that thick. And then if you are getting that square, boxy, weird thing in the refractive area there of the glass in the middle, then adjust the shell modifier a bit. Other than that, guys, let's get on with the splashes. Alright, I'll show you how to create those. Alright, so I'm going to open up a new fresh 3ds Max file, and we're going to create the meshes for the splash effect that you see in the dancing water speaker. So I'm going to use a particle source for this, and this is pretty straightforward. There's nothing to this. So if you haven't used if you haven't worked with particles at all in 3ds Max, don't be alarmed. This is actually a good way to see kind of this effect and what we're going to do. And this will give you a little bit of insight. So I start off with a PF source file, okay, and as we run it, we can see our little particles, or our particles or ticks coming across and going up. So what we want to do is we're going to head over to, we just got to create a gravity, because we're going to need that, and because we want the particles to fall. All right, because right now they're just going right up. There's no gravity at all. We're going to open our particle viewer, and this is what we have at default. So I just need some simple tasks out of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our speed, everything. You know what? I'm going to add a force. Start with that. Rotation, I don't think we need, or better yet, you know what? We'll keep it on. We'll go to our force. We're going to add our gravity. This way it just drops down. You can see we've got some gravity now. You can play with the strength so that it's not super strong. It doesn't just pull it right down right away as the start of the frames happen. So now we just get particles coming up and then just leaving. So what we need to do is we got to control our birth rate so that we have more particles to work with here. You can also play the influence, so that's between the two, influence and the strength of the gravity. But we don't want our particles to leave, so we're going to go over to our birth and we're going to change this so that it's not going to end at 30 frames. So I'm going to say about 100 frames. This way it goes for 100 frames as long as we want it. But you can see our particles are more spread out, and that's because we're going to need more of these guys. All right, and for what I'm going to be doing and what technique I'm using here, I'm going to need enough particles to work with here. So let's get these guys into like little. We need some geometry here. We need something to work with. So I'm going to say. Okay, we're in geometry there. I'm going to go to display, and then let's go down over to geometry. We get our squares, or our boxes, sorry. Let's make these 20-side spheres. You see we got little spheres, and we can size them up a bit. We'll also add some variation. Right, some are small, some big. Just going to try to. Their sizes are like. Okay, and I was kind of playing with these numbers here. So we might need a little bit more particles to work with, and this is why I was talking about I'm going to need enough particles so I can start to create a mesh here. Okay, this possibly will work. So now what we want to do is you can't convert these little metaballs to or these little particle spheres to a mesh. So what you got to do is we're going to use the particle source and we're going to tie these in with a blob mesh, it's called. And I don't know if you've heard of this, but this is what's going to give us the effect we want. Right, so what I'm going to do here, I don't think we're going to need, just trying to see if there's any other mesh options here, but anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our, we have where our compound objects are, and there's blob mesh. So we'll apply one to the screen here, or to the viewport, and we'll just link it over to our particle source file. And now you can see it creates a mesh, like a blobby kind of, or blobbish mesh that goes over. And then what it's doing is it's finding each connection between each particle and then it's creating a mesh bind in a way to the two together, and it gives it like this organic form. It's very cool, and you can adjust. You got to be very careful too though with adjusting this, because it could crash your machine if you add way too many polygons at once. So we're just gonna get a feel for these guys. And you can see they're already connecting and they're meshing up, but it still looks very very spherical. Very it looks too round, so we gotta play with this a bit and find a liking for these properties here. Now, one thing that you can do, you can aid yourself with the help of the relax tool, the relax modifier, and as we relax this, they even bind together even more, and they start to look more like water. So it's almost a cool way to get cool water effects added to your scenes. Okay, so we'll go back to the particle view here, and we're just gonna add just a bit more particles. And because you can see we have these gaps, and we need to fill those in. So in order for us to get that effect, we have to add more particles, and then we'll be on a better road here. We just need to pretty much remove and refresh this guy. But I'm going to grab the source, remove it. Now just repick it again, and there we go. So now you can see we have more connections, and in fact, it looks a little bit more dense and more defined as a water mesh. And we'll play with the relaxing just a bit more. All right, we don't want it too elasticy, but we just want it enough that there's a breakup here. You know, what I'm thinking here is those guys connect. So the science doesn't work here. So what we got to do is there's where it can get complex if you keep cranking up those polygons. So just be careful of that. It can really crash your system. All right, you know what? We're going to be okay with this. What I'm going to do is convert it to an editable poly. Now we have a mesh file. All right, so we can move this over, and we can still use the particles on the left as a template and create more mesh files if need be. In this case, I'm only going to use the one, and then I'm going to just modify. So actually, I like how we have a separate little spheres here. We can use those as like droplets. So I'm just going to create a couple of those with this mesh file. Now it'll give us some realistic splashes a little bit. All right, and that should do it. And then that will work. I'm just going to use the one, but you can create separate meshes. You know, so you can randomize your particles and then recreate the metaballs there, and or the blob mesh, and you can see we've got something very similar according to the pictures there. So let's grab this mesh, and I'm going to also save this file with the particle in it, but we're going to grab that mesh file. All right, so I bounced ahead and applied these the mesh over into the casings, and it's the same mesh, and all I've done with this was take soft selections and I just modified each of them. So I dragged them over in 4 spots, and I just took each mesh, I would rotate them and then just grab sections of them and twist them up. And I'd move them and rotate them, and I would also use soft selections and just kind of scale certain areas and twist certain areas and stretch them out so they look different from one another. So this is off the same mesh file created, and now I got a whole different look to each of them. All right, so that's what I've done there. And then also I've added a ground plane, and I just threw a simple wood texture on there, and added it with our HDR, and So whatever HDR you want to use. All right. So now we're going to start to apply materials to our little splashes. All right, I'm just going to hide our, for now, I'm going to hide our background image there, so we can see a little clearer what we're doing. So we're going to select one of the meshes. We're going to combine these guys together. I'd say it's probably the best way to do it, so we're just going to go over to your attach, and better yet, we want to use the list. We just want to do all these blob meshes here. And attach, and now it's just the one file. So now, for the one, the one mesh, and then we can just apply one material to it. So we're going to create a water material. I'll go over here and create a Vray material. I'm just going to call this the water. And that's very straightforward. It's almost like creating glass. All right, so let's go to these properties. Diffuse. We'll make it dark gray. Let's get a little bit of reflection in there. Come down or refract. I don't need it 100% see-through, but just very close to it. All right, you can already see we got really nice results there. Then we're just going to come down to our IOR, refraction IOR, and put it to 1.33. Let's change that up just a bit. All right, whoops. Don't want to attach it to that. All right. And our shell thickness is actually 0.25, so we don't get that funky square, just pointing that out. Okay, and we're also on the outer amount. And we want to make sure that the casing has affect shadow, so it lets a little light in. All right, so we're not too closed in. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'll show you how I have done the lights for this, but pretty much, I'm just gonna center these guys. But that's pretty much it. That concludes this video tutorial. I'll just right after this, I'll just show you a little bonus of the lighting for these little splashes. But that concludes the dancing water speaker tutorial. I hope you learned a lot from this, and you can create your own cool stuff. Thanks, guys, for watching. All right, so one thing I just wanted to mention that I didn't mention in the video is how I got the lighting set up here that you see on our left, and the depth of field and all that. I'm going to go step by step with you guys how I did this. It's pretty straightforward. Everything is set up very simple here. So going with the camera, I use a Vray physical camera, and my f-stop number, I have it around 293. Okay, you can use whatever number if you want, 2, whatever that suits your needs. This is what I use for this shot. Also, I applied our specify focus and a focus distance, which plays a role with our depth of field. And you can see where our blue line is here. And we just move it towards the corner. That's our focus, right? That's the in focus, and then the two outer ones are the out of focus. So our shutter speed is at 60 and neutral white balance. And then make sure that you have your depth of field on, and a motion blur is checked on as well. And now I'm going to tell you the reason for that motion blur here and why we're using it. So the motion blur happens because this mesh file that I created all the water with has 3 frames connected, so it has a little bit of movement to it, and this way, as it moves, we get a little bit of motion blur. I just wanted a sense of motion, but not a lot. So I just made a 3-frame move, and then at frame 1, this is where I render out. I render in frame 1 so that I get a little bit of a motion blur effect. kind of a cool, clever way of getting just a little bit of motion in your shot. All right, but I just didn't want to lose the detail and make it too fast. The other thing is I used a plane and just with a simple wood grain texture. Right, and then the casing, or sorry, not the casing, and then with this glow that you see here, is just two V-Ray lights, one at the bottom, one at the top. All right, they're the same light pretty much. I didn't instance them, but they both have different properties, but they're based off the same light. So, and then one thing I just watched out was making sure that the edging, the light wasn't going into the thickness of the glass, because then you're gonna get some really weird, funky, refractive materials, or sorry, refractive artifacts that you're just not gonna like. So keep in mind, just keep it out of the thickness of the glass. And then I applied a gradient ramp that had some color to it, as you see here, at the bottom. And I just applied some different types of colors randomly. And I used this gradient and attached it to our light material, or to our V-Ray light. All right, so just to grab it here, and showing you here that it's the multiplier is 80, and the color, you can ignore that as we go down, and you can see that the ramp is applied into the texture slot. So I just dragged it over into the use texture and slot, and then I can just use it as an instance and apply and just change the colors the way I wanted it to. And I use RTE for the aid, but I could show you here and without trying to explain this to you guys, so you can kind of see the actual effect of what's going on here. So we're going to use active shade. All right, and right now what I have is the V-Ray light. The V-Ray light is invisible, so we're just going to uncheck that, and so you can see the result. And you can see it's over bright, and that's because our multiplier is stacked at 80. So what we want to do, just to give you guys an idea, and actually the reason why it's so high is so that I can bounce enough light in and get it through towards the top of the splash. And it just really seemed to work. It kind of like an LED effect. But if I bring this down to like 1, you'll start to see the color gradients and what it's doing. And that's all it is. So you can apply gradient ramp, change your colors if you want, maybe like a red or something different. You can hit OK. You can see now we get the red in there, and you can change the whole color to what to your liking. So that's pretty much the method that I went to get that result. All right. Just gonna undo a couple times here. It's red, I guess. It doesn't matter. We'll just leave it. And then for the upper light, it's the same light, like I said. Dragged it up. The only difference between the two lights is that the top light has a multiplier of 100. All right, so you can see here. And also in our exclude, I excluded the casing here that you see. I excluded that so that it wouldn't reflect. There would be no reflections into the casing. It would just really reflect into the water splash, and then give me a little bit of light, more light to be pushed into the casing. So I excluded it from bouncing into the plastic casing, the glass casing, whatever you want to call it. Other than that, that's pretty much it, guys. And then I just cropped in here and took the shot and rendered it out. So I hope you guys learned a lot from this tutorial, and try it yourself, see what kind of results you come up with. And I'd like to thank you for watching this tutorial, and feel free to check out more of my tutorials at www.renderspaz.com. you got any questions or comments, guys, feel free to drop them into the comments box where this tutorial lands on the website. So thanks, guys, and see you again.